We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Wednesday. Some shit happening this week that we need to talk about, and we will do that shortly. Got some emails as well as we normally do. I wanted to tell you a little story before we get started here. Now, as you know, I'm retired. I got up yesterday morning. I did about three or four TikToks. So I was going to lay back until some other news hit, and then I'd do some later on. So I'm not really doing anything. My wife wasn't working yesterday, and she says, "What do you want to do?" And I go, "I don't fucking know what I want to do. We're retired. There's only limited things you can do. Oh, you could go to the casino, but we can't do that every fucking week." So we really didn't know what to do. But she said, "Well, let's get in the car and go." I go, "Where are we going?" She says, "Who cares? We're going to take a ride." So we took a ride. We checked out a couple of things. We went to a party place because we've got my granddaughter's birthday party coming up at the end of the month, and we want to get the specific decorations that my granddaughter is into. Apparently, she's into super kitties now. My wife and I even watched one of the shows just to get an idea what it was about. Pretty cool. It's a Disney thing, but there is nothing out there as yet. It's too new to find any decorations for super kitties. Leave it to my granddaughter. She was into baby sharks. I can find those all over the place, but she's not into them anymore. Then she was into Bluey. Could find that all over the place, but she's not into that anymore. She's on the cutting edge of children's entertainment. And now it's super kitties. Anyway, we go out, we do some shopping, and we're driving around. And she, "What do you want to do now?" I fucking don't know. We happen to be in an area that was close to where I grew up. I grew up in South Minneapolis, right near the river, which is near the Ford Bridge. And right across the Ford Bridge is Highland Park in St. Paul. And I spent some time over in Highland Park. In fact, there was a bar there at one time where all the young people hung out. It was nickel beer night, and we got a little fucking crazy. They ended up closing down that bar, and I'm not going to say it was because of all us knuckleheads going in there and causing trouble, but I'm not going to say it wasn't that. Anyhow, we're driving through Highland Park, and my wife says, "Yeah, you remember that consignment furniture shop that we used to go to? Let's go there." I go, "Okay, we can do that." But to give you an idea how little we had to do, I said, "But we don't need any furniture." So what the hell? Let's go anyway. So we go, we park, we walk past this restaurant, and then into the consignment furniture shop, and it was pretty cool. It's a very nice place, and they have interesting things. And we bought stuff years ago in this place, and we're just walking around. I'm trying not to look stupid, and that's pretty hard because I don't know what I'm looking at. Um, and so as I'm standing there, I'm standing near the door, and this woman walks in, and she's standing there, and I turn around and notice her, and she looks at me, kind of gasps, points at me, and says, "Rational Boomer?" I go, "Wow. Yeah, yeah, that's me." She goes, "My husband watches you all the time." I go, "Well, thank you. Thank you very much." I mean, here's what you have to understand. When somebody recognizes me, I'm way more excited than they are. I'm more excited and honored by the fact that somebody who watches is a peer and actually notices me in the wild someplace, whether it be here in Minnesota or Georgia or wherever the fuck I am. I am absolutely um, honored by that, and I appreciate it. So we talk for a little bit. Then her husband walks in. I shake his hand. We talk for a little bit. It wasn't a lengthy thing. I never know what to say. I don't want to suck up people's time because I have the ability to talk, and I have a little ability to stop talking. So my wife has to be there to kind of guide me through it. Otherwise, God knows what I'll do and how long I'll keep people. But anyway, we talked for a little bit, and then they went back to the restaurant or home or wherever, and we continued to shop. So we're out shopping for furniture that we don't need, but we have the good fortune to run into some of my peers here, our peers on TikTok and in the podcast. And I just want to say hello to them. That is Gordon and Deborah. Thank you for coming up to me. It's much appreciated. I'm gratified that people notice and feel comfortable enough to walk up to me. It's never a problem. I'm never going to act like I'm put out by it. I am honored that people recognize me and feel comfortable enough to say something. So that was the fun part of my day yesterday. Of all the stuff I did, the fun part was actually meeting some people, Gordon and Deborah. Great people, wonderful people. Thank you for coming out. All right, we have some emails to read, so let's do that. Hey, Mike, looks like your prediction of Truth Social will come true sooner than later. In less than a week, it has dropped more than 20%. By the time this piece of shit will be able to access any of his own stock in Truth Social, it'll be a penny stock. It is my understanding that he cannot touch it for 6 months after going public. This will create a few, maybe more problems for him. He will be unable to use any of this stock liquidation for any campaigning. He won't be able to use it to pay attorneys with the money from any of the sale of the stocks for 6 months. By the time he will be able to access this stock, it will be only worth a quarter, if not less, its opening value. Dennis from Iowa. This is true, Dennis, and there's more to the story. Something I read yesterday. Not only is the stock dropping like a rock and going to continue to drop, and it won't be anywhere near the value of what they suspected. You see, this was all hype and bullshit when they first talked about the valuation. 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion, 8 billion. It's all bullshit. What came out was that this company, since its inception in 22, I believe, has lost more than $58 million. The only revenue it's created is about $4.1 million. And this has a lot of people concerned. In fact, there's some auditors that have said, we may have to shut this motherfucker down. This is in some dire financial condition. So, as much as the stock is dropping like a rock, this thing may not be able to survive financially and may end up being shut down. So, there's a lot of stuff here. And of course, Donald Trump and all the Trump-la-fucks were so excited, so proud. Oh, Donald Trump will be rich again. Donald Trump will actually be a billionaire this time. He's going to get all this money. You should know better than that. You know as well as I do that everything that Donald Trump does fails. He will always fuck it up. And this is a perfect example. He took a company that is losing money, hyped it up enough to get people interested at first, but then it's starting to lose. And what you have to understand about this digital company that merged with Donald Trump's company, this isn't really a new IPO. What they did is they took the name off the original digital company, which was also already an IPO, and put DJT on it. So they started out with about 17, 18 bucks a share, and then it went up from there. Uh, they didn't start from the get-go. They didn't start from zero. They've been trying to game this thing all the way through, and it's not looking good. This digital company maybe thought it was a good thing to take Donald Trump's name because it would make them money, and if they sold today, they probably would make a significant amount of money. But Donald Trump can't touch it. And by the time Donald Trump does, it is going to be worth shit because it is a losing proposition. All right. You remember we had Dan on the program, and Dan is a film student. He's looking to produce a film. And he mentioned on the show that he has a GoFundMe, and actually it's um, a little different than a GoFundMe. It's Indiegogo.com, and he's looking to fundraise money so he can do this film. And he explained to me the film, and it actually sounds pretty interesting. So I promised I would give the link to his Indiegogo, which is a GoFundMe essentially, and pass along to those folks listening to the podcast in case you wanted to donate to the effort. Let me tell you what the effort is first. The concept. The Waynes is a compelling web based series that delves into the untold story of Thomas and Martha Wayne, tracing their lives from their early beginnings to the fateful night that forever alters the course of Gotham's history. The series intricately explores the dynamics of the Wayne family, shedding light onto the personal challenges, triumphs, and sacrifices that shape the iconic figures behind the Batman legacy. Through intimate portrayals of Thomas and Martha's evolving relationship, the series paints a poignant portrait of love, loss, and the enduring legacy of the Wayne name. The tone. The series embraces a blend of warmth, hope, and underlying darkness, capturing the essence of a family's rise to prominence amidst the shadows of a city teetering on the brink of chaos. With a focus on character driven storytelling, The Wayne sets a tone that is both heartfelt and foreboding, inviting viewers to witness the emotional journey of two individuals destined for greatness and tragedy. The main themes. Legacy and lineage. The series explores the weight of the Wayne family legacy and the burden of upholding a name synonymous with justice and heroism. Love and sacrifice. Through the lens of Thomas and Martha's relationship, the series delves into sacrifices made in pursuit of a greater good and the enduring power of love to conquer darkness. Origins of Heroism. By charting the early years of Thomas and Martha Wayne, The Waynes examines the formative moments that shape the foundations of heroism and resilience in the face of adversity. Class divide and societal unrest. Against the backdrop of Gotham's social disparities and rising tensions, the series delves into the repercussions of privilege, power, and the struggle for justice in a city on the brink. The Waynes offers a poignant and captivating exploration of the human side of Gotham's most iconic family, setting the stage for the tragic events that will forever alter the course of Bruce Wayne's destiny. He says, I would really appreciate whatever help you and your followers could give me in making this web based series a reality. Thank you, listener Dan. All right. See what I mean? It does sound like an interesting idea. And it's I don't know. I'd like to see the show. I'm not as big a superhero fan as some, but I know there are a lot of fans out there. But for me, Batman is kind of the iconic superhero. Having grown up in the '60s when the Batman television show was on, I've watched many of the Batman movies. Some I've liked, and some I've been disappointed by. But this is a little different take on it, and I think it's interesting. So, if you'd like to help out and donate, I'll give you the email or the address here. It's igg.me /at / the Waynes, WAYNES, /x / 374100509 #. Now, this is recorded so you can play it back and run it back and get it any number of times. If you want it written out for you, just send me an email at rationalboomer@gmail.com and I'll pass it back along to you. Once again, it's igg.me /at the Waynes, WAYNES, /x / 374100509 #. All right, Dan, there you go. Hopefully you'll get some folks helping you out there. And when the movie's done, we'd like to see it. All right, moving on. Hi, Mike. First of all, I enjoyed your podcast today. Abe has a new follower, so I attempt to send TikTok an email to voice my opinions about how they took away your ability to be paid as a content creator. Both email addresses I used after several Google searches were returned. Mailer Damon. The address I used was legal@tiktok.com and info@tiktok.com. Like I said before, I think we got that worked out. I complained with an appeal, and a bunch of other people sent notes or did whatever they did. And I'm back in the program, and all is well at this point. That doesn't mean that things can change at a moment's notice. So I appreciate everybody's concern and efforts. Thank you very much. All right, the next email. Rational Boomer, I'm writing for two reasons. One is to tell you how versatile I think your guest and you are on your podcast episodes. Each guest is unique and very different from your other guest. Each one has a very different backstory, jobs, education, levels, lifestyles, income levels, etc. The only thing that they have in common is that they all hate or at least dislike Trump. I've noted how easily how you interact with each one while you demonstrate a very different side of your personality with each. You are very respectful of each of them and very patient when you need to be. Each one brings a slightly different attitude out of you while you maintain your core personality and beliefs. It makes for an enjoyable and interesting podcast for us listeners. Great job. The second thing I want to say became apparent to me when you read Z Man's email and Garage Door Jeff's, or is it Backdoor Jeff? I don't know. That may be a shot, Jeff. Jeff, or are those two different people? They both spoke about how disappointed they are every time Trump seems to be treated differently by the judicial system and is treated better than we would be treated. You gave the same reason for their displeasure as usually you do when this subject comes up, and that is the fear is what is driving these concerns. And that's true. I would like to give you a different perspective. I regularly discuss this with many other people I know when they bring this kind of thing up, and I have come to believe that fear seems to be the issue for a smaller percentage of people during my discussions, since most people agree with you and I that Trump definitely will not win the election later this year. The two other reasons that come up when this issue presents itself is one, many people are very sick of the two-tier judicial system. That gives more grace to the richest people and especially to Trump than the vast majority of people who enter the courts. The final reason is that people, especially me, are so sick and tired of Trump's bullshit and want to see him go down definitively and end him being the center of attention like he has for the past 8 years. Most people want to just watch him as he squirms while he goes through the long series of cases that he's charged with. Most people want no longer hear his supporters say the fucking stupid things they say each time it looks like he has won something, even though he hasn't won anything. I know that this is cynical and even mean, but I and most others I know I want to see he and his supporters bite the dust and let the world learn the lessons that need to be learned so that this bullshit never happens again and we can go back to some semblance of normalcy, even for just one day before we start building a newer and kinder new world. Thank you for letting me spew, Boris. Well, thank you, Boris. And you're absolutely right. You're on target. People who say those things, oh, nothing's ever going to happen. He's never going to be accountable. It's out of frustration. I understand that. And it's also out of fear. And the fear is justified given what we've seen already and what we're told might come should Donald Trump be reelected. But think of it this way, and this is why I get frustrated. And as I say, I'm not mad at the people who do this. I understand why they do it. I'm just frustrated by the whole mindset. Say you're playing on a football team and you're getting ready before the game and you're all hyped up and ready to go and ready to fight and ready to win, but you've got three or four people that say, no, we don't have a fucking prayer. We don't have a fucking prayer. Well, that's not the attitude to have, and that's not a helpful attitude. If you're not going to be helpful in the fight, well, then just get out of the way and wait, and we'll let you know when it's done. This is a tough situation with Donald Trump and the Trump-lefucks. They've gotten away with so much, and that's why it's absolutely important that we are determined and focused and confident to win this fight. I feel comfortable in saying that Donald Trump will not win the election in November. There are no facts that suggest he would. And if we're just basing things on facts, that's why I'm so confident. But the fact of the matter is, when there are people who are saying, oh, nothing's ever going to happen and just kind of pout, that hurts the cause. That just fuels the enemy. And we don't want to do that. We don't need to do that. That attitude is very much like what Donald Trump or any narcissist would do. If you've ever dealt with a narcissist, you'll critique them about something. You know, like I'll give you an example, and I don't think this ever actually happened, but this is the best way I can explain it. Say if my father went to the grocery store, bought 10 bags worth of stuff, and he bought the wrong marshmallows. And if I would have said, hey, Dad, you bought the wrong marshmallows, his reaction would be, okay, then I'll just won't buy groceries anymore. That would be his attitude. That is a childish attitude. And that's what I'm saying. If people get angry or upset about it, they're saying, well, it's not going my way, so fuck it. It can just go to hell. That's not a good attitude to have. That's not an adult attitude to have. And that's what frustrates me. Boris, thank you. All right. The next email says, hey, Boomer, just watch your video. I wonder, like everybody last night, I was pissed when he posted Bond. Interestingly, though, it didn't last. You're having an effect on me because I then realized, where did this money come from? we know we now know that he put up the cash to this guy Hankey or whatever, and he posted the bond. Where did Bible Boy get the money? Like you said, I know from experience we'll find out. You can't hide stuff like that anymore, especially these days. What's amazing is happening in real time in the faces of working people and poor people all over the country. Excuse me. This is a reason to be confident. Do Trump and his MAGA morons think that while dealing there with their day-to-day struggle, the working classes are going to take them seriously in November? Does he think people are going to identify with him? Dig this. Donnie thinks SCOTUS will invent some kind of immunity for him and make most of this go away. Yeah, that'll go over well with Main Street. Yeah, you want to see fighting in the streets? Let that fucking happen. And it ain't going to be the Republicans, it'll be the Democrats. Then he figures that his billionaire buddies and very possibly a foreign power or powers will bail him out. Yeah, we're all going to vote presidential candidate who's somebody's bitch. The military will love that. Finally, he thinks he'll be elected and pardon himself along with his January 6 bums. Yes, I'm sure that will bode well and set a great precedent for respect for law and order. The bottom line is everything he does is seen by the whole population, including his base. Everything he's trying to do is in direct opposition to everything he and the party is preaching. We see the guy who was going to drain the swamp beg the swamp to bail his diapered ass out. So much for the deep state. Everything he's doing is completely shows how full of shit he is and has no credibility or integrity whatsoever and is unelectable. Thanks, Boomer, for hitting the reset button. Z Man. Thank you, Z Man. And you've kind of nailed it too. There is nothing that Donald Trump does that works in his favor. Everything he does hurts him. Everything. And this is why he cannot win in November. If you think he's fucked it up beyond all recognition, FUBAR, to this point, wait 6 or 7 months because it's going to get worse. All right. This is coming from Emily. And this, I don't know that this email was supposed to be read on the air, but I don't give a fuck. I'm going to read it anyway because I think it's interesting. Hello, Mike. I wanted to reach out to you about a person that I think would be a good guest for your podcast, Shannon Borer. A former Maryland State police officer and FBI instructor, has provided expert testimony in court cases many times, but one case involving an ICE agent left him questioning our criminal justice system. His forthcoming book, Judicial Soup, documents this experience and his thoughts. For more info, visit shannonborer.com and get in touch for a review copy interview. Best, Emily. That may be interesting. That might be interesting. And I will reach out to them and see about the possibility of having Shannon on the show. It's interesting to get some straight facts from somebody in the know. And clearly, um, this sounds to be like one of those people. And, if you have suggestions, um, if you have suggestions for somebody you want on the show, I'm open to it. But I will tell you this. Now, this gentleman is selling a book, and that's fine. I don't mind if people sell a book. Abe's selling a book. I don't care about that if it's something of interest and something that's appropriate for the things we talk about. But I get people that aren't on topic at all and want to sell books on the show, and I'm just not going to fucking do that. Just not going to do it. Now, this gentleman, I'm happy to sell his book or at least offer it out to get the information that he can provide. There's another person that was recommended to be on the show, and this came from Abe. You remember Abe was on the show just a bit ago, and he's got a thing for this Jim Jordan election in Ohio. He wants to take down Jim Jordan. Well, who the fuck doesn't? We'd all like to take him down. And you remember that Abe brought up the person that's running against uh, uh, Jim Jordan. Her name is Tammy Wilson, and he's been helping her out quite a bit, giving her exposure and publicity and such, and doing whatever he can to help her. And I give him credit. Let's put down Jim Jordan if we can. And so Abe said, I'm going to put you in contact with her PR person and see if you can't set up an interview. And it looks like we did set up an interview. I'm going to record it Friday afternoon. It'll either be on Saturday or Sunday, and it should be interesting. Again, this is appropriate because this is a woman who's running against Jim Jordan. We'd all like to see Jim Jordan go by the wayside, and maybe Tammy Wilson is just the person to do that. I guess we'll find that out when she's on the show and we talk a bit. I'll get a sense of what her situation is. Now, keep in mind, one of the reasons Jim Jordan is in the House of Representatives is because his district is heavily red. Now, I understand there's been some changes in the districts where it's not quite as red as it once was, so that might leave some opportunity for Tammy Wilson to beat him. And let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that she does. We need to get a Democrat in there, another Democrat in the House, and we need to get Jim Jordan out on his ass. Jim Jordan may have some other problems when the superseding indictments come from Jack Smith regarding the insurrection, but that may not come until after the November election. So let's put him on his ass first, and then let's put that motherfucker in jail. That sounds like the a good route to go. So we'll see. I have a time scheduled Friday afternoon to talk to Tammy Wilson, who's running against Jim Jordan. This should be an interesting conversation, and we'll see how that goes. Like I said, if you have other recommendations, feel free to let me know. But I will. The only thing I will tell you is I'm not going to go track somebody down and beg them to be on the show. I don't need to do that. I've got enough listeners to be on the show to keep myself busy. I've got enough regulars with Old Soul and Ed to be on the show regularly. I can do the show myself, and sometimes I prefer to do it myself. So um, I'm not going to go chase anybody down. I don't. I don't feel like I need to do that, and if I need to do that, I can't do the conversation the way it needs to go. Some of them may be surprised by how this goes because I don't do interviews. I could do interviews. I've done many interviews in my life, but that's not what the podcast is about. It's about a conversation, kind of get some in depth information about the people on the show, or at least some in depth opinions from them about what's going on. And in this case, with Tammy Wilson, it'd be interesting to see what the climate is in the district where Jim Jordan is the representative and why she thinks that she has a chance to kick his ass out. Well, a lot of people have tried to kick him out, and Jim Jordan hasn't done jack shit since he's been in the House of Representatives, and he's a creep. Why he hasn't been kicked out before now, I don't know. And that will probably be the first question I have for Tammy Wilson. So we'll see how that goes on Friday. You'll hear it on Sunday, probably on the Rational Boomer podcast. All right. We are going to take a quick break and we will be right back. So, in the emails, we were talking about this bond that was put up for Donald Trump. And yesterday, we kind of found out more about who this person was that put up the bond. A Donald Trump supporter stepped up to help the embattled former president, secure the bond he needed to appeal this $450 million plus judgment. Now, we know that the bond was lowered to $175 million, but that doesn't change the actual decision. The $175 million was lowered just to hold the bond and allow him to appeal. He could have appealed anyway. It's really not about allowing him to appeal, it's about stopping Letitia James from liquidating his shit. So he put up the $175 million in the bond, which maybe didn't surprise some people, kind of surprised other people. It's still a lot of money. And you have to wonder how he did this because he has to put up collateral. And at this stage, with his current situation, the only collateral that works is about cash. And if you have the cash, why do you need the bond? And somebody would say, well, he doesn't want to put up his own money. It doesn't really make a difference because his money is tied up now, as well as the bond company's money tied up. And not to mention the fact that the bond company is going to charge him a premium, maybe 20%. Say it's 20%. So that means Donald Trump will have to pay back the full amount. If he loses the appeal, he'll have to pay the full amount of $175 million plus anywhere from 35 to 40 million as the premium. Whether he wins the appeal or not, he has to pay that premium. Wouldn't it make sense to put up your own money? But he's not doing that. The guy's name is, he's a billionaire, Don Hankey, Knight Specialty Insurance Company, which is based in California and underwrote the $175 million bond that Trump sought, according to the court filing. Hankey said, I'd say it's more of a business decision, but I happen to be a supporter also. Speaking with Forbes, Hankey said that his company reached out to the Trump's team about a possible deal, even though the two men had never met. This is what we do at Knight Insurance, Hankey told Forbes. I'd never met Donald Trump. I'd never talked to him on the phone. I heard that he needed a loan or a bond, and this is what we do. So we reached out, and he responded. Now, keep in mind, one of the things that got this guy rich is making car loans to people with bad credit. So it seems natural that he would call Donald Trump, who probably has some bad credit. Hankey reportedly offered to post the original amount of Trump's bond before Judge Arthur Engoron lowered it from around $500 million to $175 million. Trump had complained the amount was too high and he could not find a company willing to underwrite it. The issue led to speculation that the New York Attorney General Letitia James might begin to seize Trump's real estate holdings. Hankey said, excuse me. Hankey said, we have liquidity and I'm just happy to provide it. Trump reportedly handed over a combination of cash and bonds to Knight Insurance. The bond makes it possible for him to appeal the verdict in his civil fraud trial without having to begin payments. Now, a search of public record shows that Hankey donated $2,700 to Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, the maximum individual limit at the time. The vast majority of his donations have been to the Republican candidates and the Republican Party. Forbes has dubbed Hankey the little known king of subprime car loans, providing car loans to people with bad credit or no credit because loans are risky to provide. He can demand high interest rates. Now, according to Forbes, Hankey is also the largest individual owner of Axos Financial, the finance firm that came to Trump's rescue in 2022. Back then, having been dumped by other banks, Trump and business empire were facing potential ruin until Axos stepped in to help the former president with properties including Trump Tower and the Trump Doral Resort. Trump was forced to put up another huge bond totaling about 90 million to appeal the verdict against him in his civil defamation case with the writer E. Jean Carroll earlier this year. His various legal entanglements also include 4 pending criminal trials. And here's the interesting thing about this story. The first part of this story, as you heard, he said he put up stocks and property and stuff like that. But then later, Hankey came out and he said, well, he did it with all cash. What's the confusion here? He did it with all cash or did it with property and stocks? The latest I heard, it was all cash, which I thought was interesting. And I mentioned in the email section, if you have all cash, if Donald Trump had all cash, why would he need somebody else to put up the bond? You might say, well, he doesn't want to use his own money. Well, that's well and good. But when the bond company puts up the money, and if cash is the collateral, then that cash is encumbered too. It's not like Donnie can go dip in there and grab money out of it. So I don't know what the benefit is. Then you throw in on top of that Hankey is kind of a slimy fuck. So he's probably charging 20% at least. And at 20% of $175 million, we're talking about $35 million as a premium, as a price. So what that means, basically, Donald Trump has to give him, he has to put the money in cash, if in fact that was true, up the total amount. Then he has to give this clown $35 million. Now it goes up for appeal. If the appeal fails, then the courts take all that money that's in the account. So then whatever Donald Trump put up to be collateral for that amount, then Hankey takes all that money. So Donald Trump is out the money regardless. He's out the money now because the money is all tied up at this point. But in addition to the $75 million, he also had to pay this guy anywhere from $20 to $30 million. So the question is, if you've got the money, why pay that extra fee? Why go through all this bullshit? Why not just put your own money up, especially if you feel confident that your appeal is going to work? Well, there's any number of reasons why he would do this. And frankly, Donald Trump is a dumb motherfucker, so he probably fucked up. But I question whether he had the money at all. Then where would he get the money? Well, there's always been some kind of concern that Donnie Trump might get money from Saudi Arabia or Vladimir Putin or some local oligarch like Elon Musk or something. And that's possible. But if he was to get that money from, say, Saudi Arabia and then put it up as a bond, that wouldn't look good, would it? That might be a problem. So if instead Elon Musk or Saudi Arabia gave Donald Trump $170 or $200 million, and then Donald Trump gave it to Hankey, then the paper trail is more limited. The thing about it is he may be trying to hide where he got the money from, and I may be wrong. Maybe he did have the cash, but it doesn't seem right. Here's a guy that can't put on rallies because he can't afford it. Here's a guy that's struggling to pay legal fees, and he's got 175 million just hanging out. Find that hard to believe. But the fact of the matter is when you move that kind of money, it's going to be found out where it came from. The IRS is going to want to know, the US government's going to want to know, and it will come out. And when it does, and if it does come from some adversarial country or an oligarch, there's going to be a lot of questions. Because as the emailer said earlier, it's a tough situation to put a president in when he's so deep in debt to other people, whether it be another country or a wealthy person in this country. There's going to be a lot of questions about that, and it's going to cause people to question Trump's integrity. So I don't know what's going on with that. I know a lot of people are upset that he did post the bond, but don't worry about that. They're going to hear the arguments in September. He will likely lose the appeal and he'll lose all the money. The most important thing here is Johnny didn't get punished. Yeah, he did get punished because as much as the state of New York isn't getting the money yet, the money is out of Donald Trump's pocket. He can't touch it, and he's not likely to ever get it back. So that money in his pocket, while uh, the judgment hasn't been completed, he doesn't have that money. He can't access that money. And when you're looking at a guy who's got $80 million in legal fees and also trying to run a campaign, and you lock up with the 91 million and the 175 million, not to mention the 30 million he probably had to pay Hankey, with that all tied up with no way of accessing it, that makes things all that much tighter for Donald Trump. Trust me, Donald Trump is not feeling good about this. This is not something he wanted to do, and it's causing a pinch in his finances, even more than he's already got. He's got a substantial amount of troubles financially. And then Donnie got some bad news. We find out now that Hope Hicks, the former White House communications director who was once one of former President Donald Trump's closest advisors, is expected to testify against him in the upcoming New York criminal trial. That's a fucking problem. Somebody who's in the inside circle, who was on the phone when they were talking about the insurrection, and of course, this Stormy Daniels case. I think we all thought that she might be part and parcel to the insurrection thing, but apparently she has some insights and some knowledge of the Stormy Daniels case. Now, Hicks will reportedly speak about the hush money payments made to the porn actor in the final weeks of the 2016 presidential election when the Trump campaign was scrambling to mitigate the damage of an Access Hollywood tape in which Trump was heard making sexualizing and belittling comments about women. Now, Hicks was Trump's campaign press secretary at the time. She went on to join his administration, leaving in 2018 only to return in 2020. Now, in March last year, she met for several hours with Manhattan prosecutors investigating Donald Trump. Federal search warrants released in 2019 had shown how Hicks was part of conversations between Trump and Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, in the wake of the tape's release. Now, the New York trial starts April 15th. It really centers on accusations that Trump falsified business records to quash further scandals and to help his campaign. It doesn't have as much to do with paying off Stormy Daniels as how he had to try to cover it up. There's where the felony is, and therein lies the problem. Now, two women, Daniels and model Karen McDougal, said they had affairs with Trump in the mid 2000s. They both received hush money payments in exchange for keeping quiet. Former president, of course, denies all this shit. It never happened. It's a fucking hoax. Other former allies may be called to testify in the trial. Cohen is expected to take the stand to discuss how he helped distribute the payments. Daniels also may provide testimony, as might David Pecker, a former National Enquirer publisher and a longtime friend of Trump. And we know David Pecker and Donald Trump participated in something called Catch and Kill, which is where the National Enquirer would buy the rights to a story and then shelve it, kill it, essentially. That is a problem, too, when we're talking about a presidential campaign. So this is going to be very interesting, and Donald Trump is getting very nervous about the April 15th trial. This is going to be a big one for Donald Trump. He's got 34 felony charges. He most certainly will be convicted of some of those felony charges, multiple felony charges, and that's when the end begins. Once he has criminal convictions, he's going to be dealing in an entirely different world. And as I've told you, those people that are worried about those other trials and whether they'll come before or after the election, it really doesn't matter at this point. Donald Trump doesn't have a chance right now as it stands to win the presidential election. You give him 15 convictions and it's all fucking over, at least according to the Republican polls. So basically, this may be the kill shot, the Manhattan district. We'll see how it goes. But all the other ones, you can worry about that, but it's only going to be worse for Donald Trump. Like I said yesterday, it's like the Manhattan district digging the grave and putting the body in there, and all the rest of the trials are just dirt on top of the grave. So we'll see. Hope Hicks is talking. You know how Donald Trump loves loyalty. Well, she's not going to be very loyal, and I'm sure he's going to be able to come up with some shit to say about Hope Hicks. All right. Hours after a judge ordered Donald Trump to stop attacking the family members of prosecutors, jurors, and witnesses in his hush money trial, the ex president, of course, unleashed a no holds bar attack on his favorite target. He is a whacked out nut job, Trump wrote on True Social about Judge Arthur Engoron, who oversaw the fraud trial that he's appealing in New York. Engoron is not covered by the gag order that was expanded Monday, which involves a separate trial, the criminal hush money prosecution that's set to start on the 15th. The judge is also not covered by a separate gag order that Engoron himself put in place that involves court staff in the fraud trial, but does not protect the judge or prosecutor. But the fact that he continued ranting against the judge just hours after being ordered to rein in his attacks lends credence to experts' opinions that he can't help himself. And something happened yesterday, which may very well be a violation of the gag order. And it's all due to Professor John Turley for exposing the horrendous decision made by a corrupt New York State Judge Arthur Engoron on the I will get Trump worst in the nation's AG Letitia James unfair case against me, he wrote, referring to George Washington University law professor and Fox News contributor who has supported Trump's claim that the trials against him are a political witch hunt. Donald Trump said, I just posted a $175 million bond just for the right to appeal this travesty of a case, which I won at the appellate division, but this judge refuses to accept a first. He didn't win shit at the appellate division, and he didn't have to post the $175 million in order to appeal the case. He could appeal the case without posting the bond. What the bond really does is stop Letitia James from trying to collect the shit, seizing and liquidating his properties. That's all it really did. Now, what's interesting about this in this expanded gag order that Judge Juan Marchand put out that now includes his family and the DA's family. He basically said you can't talk about the judge's daughter, you can't talk about DA Bragg's family. You can talk about the judge and the DA, but not their families. Donald Trump looked at that and he's always looking for a loophole, and he thinks he found one. But guess what? He fucked up. He fucked up because in that gag order, it said you cannot talk about the judge's family, the DA's family, or direct anybody else to talk about the family. So, what does Donald Trump do? He goes on to Truth Social. He posts a video from Fox News about a Fox News moderator talking to this Turley guy. And this Turley guy, this Professor Turley, repeats basically everything Donald Trump did. Now, Donald Trump, I'm sure, says, well, I didn't say it. I didn't say it, but you posted it, bitch. And you indirectly directed somebody else to say it, which is a violation of the gag order. So, what's that mean? I don't fucking know. You would think that he would be violated for this, and they would find some kind of accountability. I'm hoping today at some point, DA Bragg makes some kind of motion and a complaint about this specific situation, and there is some accountability. But who really knows? We know how these courts work with Donald Trump. But for all intents and purposes, according to the gag order, Donald Trump violated the gag order simply because he doesn't know how to read, he can't comprehend, or he's just fucking stupid because he did exactly what Judge Juan Marchand said he can't do. All we can do is sit back and wait and see what happens, see if they have the balls to actually do something. Eventually, they're going to have to, and the longer they wait, the dumber they look. All right. Here's an interesting story. We've talked about Donald Trump's True Social merger with a big digital company. Then it went to be an IPO, and I kind of explained how that went. But everybody, Republicans, Donald Trump, they were so excited. Donald Trump will get $6 billion for this. Fact is, early investors in the Trump Media Technology Group are telling Reuters that they made a quick profit by cashing out late last week, just before the company's first financial report sent its share prices into free fall yesterday. One such investor was Mohammed El Shalouti, a 21-year-old data analyst from the United Arab Emirates, who rushed to invest in the Truth Media stock as soon as it became available because he believed he could get Trump supporters to pay premium prices for a stock that he believed was wildly overpriced. Shaluti's bet has already paid off, given that he bought up shares when they were trading at just $37 a piece and then sold them off last week when the price hit $65. So he made $28 per share. He said it was a no brainer. You buy the stock, wait for Trump's fan base to hear about it, and enjoy your profit. A software developer who only wished to be identified as Sarah told Reuters that her calculus in investing in True Social's parent company was similar to Shaluti's. I invest $10,000 last Tuesday because MAGA is crazy and they will pump the stock, she explained. While the share price of Trump Media was riding high at the end of last week, it came to a crashing halt on Monday when the firm released a financial report showing that it lost $58 million last year and generated just over $4.1 million. That's not a healthy company. That's not a company that's doing well. And that's not a company that's going to ride high for very long. Now, as Forbes reported on Monday, this development has taken an axe to former President Donald Trump's personal stake in the firm, which some observers speculate he would use to help pay off his considerable legal bills. Trump owns 78.5 million shares in Trump Media, about 57% of the shares, according to his stake in the social media venture slide from its peak of 6.25 billion to Monday's $4.25 billion. So basically, in the span of a couple of days, Donald Trump lost $2 billion. And you know what? You know what? It's going to get fucking worse. This stock is going nowhere. This company is a loser. Doesn't even have a million supporters or a million users. It's losing $58 million, and the only revenue it could create was $4 million. This is not a good company. This is not a healthy company. And it won't last long in the stock market. And as I told you, some auditors are so concerned about the financial health of this company, they're suggesting that they might even have to shut the motherfucker down. Wouldn't that be fun? I can't wait to see the faces of all the Trumplafucks and Donnie Trump when that happens, because they're all loud and proud right now talking to me about, well, Donnie Trump's got all this money. You don't worry about him. He's going to buy his way out of everything. Not so fucking fast. That doesn't look like that's going to happen. In fact, it's going to be exactly what we've become accustomed to with Donnie Trump, an absolute fucking failure. All right. Donnie Trump was in Green Bay because there was a primary yesterday. which he won, and Joe Biden won his primary. Joe Biden won by a lot more percentage wise, but Donnie Trump won. But while he was there in Wisconsin, which is presumably a friendly state to Donald Trump, he was faced with an angry heckler at Wisconsin's rally Tuesday night. He slammed the man with mom jokes. Oh, I bet I would love to have heard that. I'm sure it's on video. I'll check it out. Donnie runs into a heckler, and that is the absolute worst thing you can do to a narcissist. Try to embarrass him. Then he's just going to lose his shit and unload on this guy. So Trump was holding his second public event of the day, a rally in Green Bay, when a heckler showed up, and the former president seized the moment to not just fantasize about violence against the man, but complain about how the media was probably going to give the protest outside outsized attention. He says, you know, we won this state. We won this state by a lot, and it came out that we won the state actually. No, it didn't. You lost the state. At which point, booing became audible, and Trump focused on the heckler in the crowd. He said, all right, there's one guy now. Here's what the fake news will do, said Trump, as the audience roared with chants of USA to drown it out. There was tremendous dissension tonight. It was there, one guy going home to mom. He's going to get the hell beat out of him by his mother. Mom's going to say, what the hell are you doing? You embarrassed. You embarrassed me. Oh, good comeback, Donnie. No, the papers, the fake news will say it was tremendous dissension. Tremendous, Trump added. Yeah, one guy, and he's now scared stiff because he's got to go home to his mother. The mother will say, I saw you on television. You embarrass me. Now, the papers, the fake news will say it's tremendous. Donnie Trump already making excuses. He's going to run into more hecklers and more disdain in whatever campaign rallies he does. They are going to be limited because he doesn't have any fucking money. Hell, he just posted $175 million that probably wasn't even his. All right, now former FBI general counsel and ex-federal prosecutor Andrew Weissman said Donald Trump could get jail time if convicted for falsifying business records because of his recidivism. A lot of people are saying that this case in Manhattan District, he probably won't get jail time, and I don't know that that's true, especially if you have multiple felony convictions. But even if it were so, Andrew Weissman is saying he could go to jail because he's proven to be habitually doing this, a recidivist. And we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that is true. The former president is set to stand trial, of course, April 15th. Attorney Alvin Bragg and Judge Juan Marchand are on the job there. Moreover, Trump has singled out Marchand's daughter, as we know, and talking some shit. Now, if Trump were to be convicted in this case, what kind of potential penalty potentially would we be looking at? He asked. Wolf Blitzer asked Weissman on Tuesday's episode of The Situation Room. Weissman said he could be looking at jail. This is one where the judge, I think, is going to be looking at the rule of law to see how other people were treated, other people with similar criminal background. I think this is an area where Donald Trump's pretrial behavior is going to be relevant. Weissman added that while remorseful defendants may receive consideration during sentencing, it's unlikely to be a concern in Trump's case. And Donald Trump isn't going to be remorseful no matter how bad he's done. He doesn't have it in him to do that. Weissman said if you have someone who's contrite, if you have someone who shares that he's respectful of the rule of law, that this was an aberration, that this is something that the court can take into account. But if you think the defendant actually is running basically as an outlaw and is basically thumbing his nose at the judicial process and shows no signs of remorse and essentially is a recidivist, those are factors that a judge can consider. And I'm sure that the judge, like Judge Marchand, if there were to be a conviction, is going to factor all of that in. But it's just way too soon to say whether it would actually constitute jail time. And as I've said many times before, I'm not really worried about the jail time, at least initially. When we're looking at the Florida case, the Georgia case, and the DC case, we're definitely looking at jail time. I think in the Manhattan district, the key we have to get out of this is the convictions, because the convictions really change everything. It almost incapacitates Donald Trump. It makes his effort to win the election that much harder, and it's going to take his toll on his psyche, his mentality. Multiple convictions against Donald Trump are going to crush him and those people around him. They're going to have to take a look at this and say, do I still want to vote for a convicted felon? And we know from some of the polls that a lot of people do not want to vote for him if he's convicted. So, because he's so habitual in his efforts, he may go to jail just based on that, even if the convictions he gets in the Manhattan district wouldn't normally give jail time. By virtue of how many convictions he has and what his past record is and his behavior, he is very likely, as Andrew Weissman said, to do some fucking jail time. So that's all good news. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for spending the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.